Growing up in India, I used to read these Hindu mythological comics. I moved to New York City when I was very young, also reading, of course, Superman and all the typical American comics as well. Priya Shakti is an augmented reality comic book that deals with sexual violence in India using Hindu mythological characters. And the main character is the first Indian superhero who's a rape survivor. She is a compilation of many interviews I did with rape survivors and gang rape survivors, and also stories that were given to me by NGOs. So she's a compilation of all of these characters that I interviewed, real people, real stories.
I
worked with a remarkable artist named Dan Goldman, so we collaborated for about a year in really getting this down. My first incarnation of this project was this remix film that I took old 70s Bollywood movies, Hindu mythological movies, and recut 12 of them into this storyline. And he saw what I was trying to do and suggested, no, the images that you have here look like a comic book. I said, well, you're probably right. This might be an incredible format, especially to reach preteens and teenagers. Because in India, these comics, the ones that I read, reached almost 100 million people over 20 years. My motivation came after the December 2012 rape on the bus. I was in Delhi at that time, was involved in the protests. I originally looked at doing a documentary before I created the comic book, but felt the documentary format was too rigid, and also the issue was way too sensitive, especially back in December 2012. That's why I took my time and really developed a story that could have the most impact. I think the toughest part of this whole project was getting everything right in the sense of the sensitivity of the subject matter, dealing with gender violence, rape, and also with Hindu mythology. We were very careful in everything we did with this project to make sure that it did not offend anyone in India. This is a project designed by Indians for Indians about India. So we had to make sure we had it precisely right. The comic book is a perfect vehicle to be turned into a pop-up book. And I didn't want to create a physical pop-up book. I wanted to create a virtual pop-up book. And augmented reality does that. It achieves everything that a pop-up book does. Although digital downloads is great and Facebook likes are wonderful, I don't equate them with actual social impact. What I equate social impact is actually doing groundwork. We actually set up workshops in Mumbai and Delhi where teenagers can create their own one-page comic dealing with social issues, in the case here, gender violence. And they would pull stories from their community, their friends, sometimes it's even their personal stories. And they would draw the comic book within a span of one day with a mentor and a sociologist who would discuss the issues. There's something very profound about a teenager drawing a woman who's been raped or a woman who's had acid thrown on her face. It is a very active endeavor, and it's a very profound you can see it, that it really affects the people that create these comics. Sexual violence, gender violence is not just an Indian issue. The reason why this comic book has been popular all over the world is because this topic resonates with people all over the world. So it's a long process, and I think this comic book is an excellent tool to start that process.